More than 900 sailors have been seriously injured here, and at least 40 have lost their lives. And that's just in peacetime. In 1991, Petty Officer J.D. Bridges was sucked straight into the intake of an A-6 intruder. By all logic, he should have been torn apart instantly, but his helmet jammed the blades and the pilot chopped throttle in time, spitting him back out alive. In 1967, a single rocket accident aboard USS Forrestal triggered explosions that killed 134 sailors and wounded 161 more. 2 years later, a similar fire on USS Enterprise killed 27 and injured 314. In 1981, a crash on USS Nimitz killed 14 sailors and Marines, injuring 45 others. These weren't enemy attacks. They were routine carrier operations. The most dangerous job in the U.S. Navy doesn't happen in a cockpit or inside a nuclear reactor. It happens on the open steel top of an aircraft carrier, the flight deck. This is why the Navy itself calls the flight deck the most dangerous 4.5 acres on Earth. Section 1. Why the flight deck is deadlier than combat. Step onto a carrier flight deck and you're instantly inside an environment of extremes. Heat. Jet exhaust burns hotter than 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to melt copper. Noise. The roar of jets exceeds 150 decibels, louder than a jackhammer by 10 times, causing permanent hearing loss in seconds without protection. Wind. Propeller wash and jet blast can create hurricane-force winds over 120 miles per hour. One misstep, and a sailor can be hurled overboard. The deck itself is alive, pitching with waves, slick with oil, rain, or even ice. It's like working on a runway during a thunderstorm, except the runway is moving and jets are screaming non-stop. On April 18, 1995, aboard USS Independence, raw jet blast turned routine ops into chaos. A Tomcat on Catapult 4 spooled up for launch, but without a water-cooled blast deflector, the exhaust shot straight back, slamming into another F-14 parked aft. The 30-ton fighter was lifted, shoved across steel, and blown clean off the deck. The crew had seconds. They ejected as their jet tumbled into the sea, parachutes opening just above the waves. Within minutes, rescue helicopters plucked them from the water. The aircraft sank beneath the surface, later recovered from the seabed. It was a reminder, on the flight deck, even the routine can turn catastrophic in a heartbeat. Section 2. The Rainbow of Risk. The Navy controls chaos with colors, each jersey marking a life or death specialty. Blue shirts move 30-ton jets with tractors and tow bars, threading machines through lanes only feet apart. They work inches from rolling wheels, heavy machinery, and tow bars under brutal tension. In storms, they lash chains across aircraft that lurch and strain against the deck as the ship rolls. Unseen by most, blue shirts keep the flight line alive. Without them, nothing moves and nothing flies. Purple shirts, grapes, fuel aircraft. They handle thousands of gallons of explosive JP-5 daily beside hot engines. In the Forrestal fire, fueling lines ruptured, spreading burning jet fuel across the deck. Dozens of purple shirts died trying to cut fuel flow. Yellow shirts direct aircraft with hand signals. They stand directly in front of roaring fighters, trusting pilots to see them. In 1994, a yellow shirt nearly died on USS Kitty Hawk when a jet slipped forward unexpectedly, missing him by inches. Red shirts handle bombs and missiles. During Forrestal, red shirts loaded ordnance that cooked off in the firestorm, detonating 500-pound bombs. Many were killed where they stood. Brown shirts serve as plane captains. They know every quirk of their aircraft and are the last to check before launch. White shirts are the safety guardians and medics. They sprint into chaos when something goes wrong, dragging bodies from burning fuel or wreckage. On Forrestal, many of the first killed were white shirts racing toward the flames. Green shirts are the mechanics of the flight deck, the ones who crawl inside engines, adjust hydraulics, and test control surfaces while jets are live and humming. They work under wings and around spinning parts, where one slip can mean being struck, burned, or pulled in. Their job demands crawling beneath 30-ton fighters even as storms tilt the deck, or while engines spool inches away. Each color is more than a role. It's a battlefield uniform on a deck where the enemy is physics itself. Section 3. Physics that kill. Every moment on deck is defined by raw physics. Catapults. Steam or electromagnetic launchers accelerate jets from 0 to 165 miles per hour in 2 seconds. That's more force than a race car can produce 5 times over. One wrong positioning, and a sailor can be flung like a rag doll. Arresting cables. Each 2-inch thick wire stretches like a bungee to stop an 80,000-pound jet, landing at 150 miles per hour. When cables snap, and they do, they whip across the deck like steel serpents. In 2003, an arresting cable snapped aboard USS George Washington, injuring 8 sailors and nearly killing one who was flung across the deck. Jet intakes suck in hundreds of pounds of air per second. In 1991, Petty Officer J.D. Bridges was pulled into the intake of an A-6 intruder. Miraculously, his helmet and vest jammed the blades and the pilot chopped throttle instantly. He lived. Almost any other aircraft would have shredded him instantly. On the flight deck, physics is merciless. The only defense is constant vigilance. Section 4. Weather and fatigue. The sea itself conspires against sailors. Rain makes decks slippery. One slip can put a sailor under an aircraft wheel. Ice forms treacherous traps on ladders and catwalks during Arctic ops. Storms tilt the deck violently, yet launches and recoveries continue. In December 1944, Admiral Halsey's fleet was caught in Typhoon Cobra. 3 destroyers capsized, killing nearly 800 sailors. Carriers survived, but aircraft and deck equipment were ripped free, injuring dozens. Even today, storm ops mean jets chained with 20-plus tie-downs and sailors clinging to safety lines. Fatigue adds its own threat. Sleep deprivation impairs judgment as badly as alcohol. Flight deck sailors often work 12 to 16-hour shifts, then rise at dawn to do it again. Exhaustion blurs focus, and blurred focus kills. If you're proud of sailors who face not just enemies, but storms, fatigue, and lethal machines every single day, type "proud" in the comments. Section 5. Survival and tragedy stories. Every carrier sailor knows the stories because they're passed down like warnings written in blood. In 1981, an EA-6B Prowler slammed onto the deck of USS Nimitz during night training. The jet careened across the steel, igniting fuel and ordnance. 14 sailors and Marines were killed instantly, 45 more injured. No enemy had fired a shot. It was a routine evolution gone wrong. In 1967, aboard USS Forrestal, one errant rocket lit up the deck and detonated bomb after bomb. The fire raged for hours, consuming aircraft, fuel, and men. 134 sailors died, and 161 more were wounded. Many of them were flight deck crew who never had a chance to escape. That disaster forever changed naval firefighting and ordnance safety. In 1969, USS Enterprise faced its own hell. A rocket accidentally fired from a parked jet, triggering an inferno. 27 men were killed, more than 300 injured. Again, training operations, not combat. Each tragedy brought reforms, but each left scars in the Navy's memory. The deck never forgets. Section 6. Technology and training. Every accident writes new procedures. Every death pushes innovation. Modern carriers launch aircraft with EMALS, electromagnetic catapults that calculate the exact force for each plane. Old steam catapults were powerful but inconsistent. EMALS removes guesswork, preventing overstressed launches that once wrecked aircraft and killed crew. Landings are safer too. Advanced arresting gear uses hydraulic and digital systems to absorb impact, reducing the chance of cable failure, the same kind that injured 8 sailors aboard USS George Washington in 2003. Training is relentless. Sailors practice fires, cable snaps, and crashes in full-scale simulators, where they rehearse disasters until their reflexes are faster than fear. The Navy rebuilt its firefighting doctrine after Forrestal. Now, every crew member is a trained firefighter, able to grab a hose in seconds. After Forrestal, it became mandatory for all sailors, regardless of specialty, to be trained in damage control and fire response. Hundreds of future lives were saved because of the lessons paid for in 1967. Section 7. Medical and the Science of Survival. On the flight deck, accidents happen fast. Survival depends on what happens in the first 10 minutes. Sailors train in trauma medicine constantly because sometimes the medics are too far away. In 2003, when that arresting cable snapped on George Washington, sailors nearby became first responders, using tourniquets, carrying the wounded below decks, buying time until the doctors could operate. All 8 survived. Without immediate action, most would have died. Fatigue is treated like a weapon. Sleep deprivation dulls reaction times as much as alcohol. Chiefs enforce rest because a single exhausted misstep can put a sailor under a rolling jet. Section 8. The Human Spirit. Technology saves lives, training builds instinct. But what truly keeps the flight deck alive is the people who walk it. Most are barely out of high school when they step onto the deck for the first time. The roar, the heat, the chaos, it terrifies them. Petty Officer Melanie Cluck, a yellow shirt, said, "At first it's fear, then it becomes focus, and then pride." These sailors don't have to be here. They volunteer, knowing the dangers, trusting their shipmates more than themselves. They watch each other's backs, because one slip can cost lives. That bond becomes unbreakable. One veteran said, "When you've stood in 120-knot winds with someone, jets screaming past, cables snapping, you'll never forget them. That's family." Diversity is not a slogan here. It is strength. Men and women from every background, from farms and cities, all wear the same jerseys. On the deck, the only thing that matters is precision and courage. Even after witnessing tragedy, most choose to return. Some who saw men killed by cables or flames still step onto the deck the next morning. They do it because the mission demands it, because without them, nothing flies. Conclusion. The Navy calls the flight deck the most dangerous 4.5 acres on Earth. The numbers prove it. Hundreds injured, dozens killed, tragedies that scar generations. And yet, every 45 seconds, another plane launches or lands, because young Americans stand in the blast, the noise, the chaos, and turn it into choreography. The deck is not gentle, it is not forgiving, but it is the sharp edge of American power. And it only works because ordinary sailors choose to risk everything to make it happen. They never call themselves heroes, but they are. If you respect them, hit like, subscribe, and type proud in the comments. They'll never ask for it, but they deserve it. And remember this, behind every jet that roars into the sky, there's a deck crew who face fire, wind, and steel to make it happen. They are the heartbeat of America's Navy.